the threat of terrorist attacks, both outside our borders and inside. We didn't do away with all our civil liberties after the Oklahoma City bombing, even though that was an American who did that, somebody who served in our military, church-going, so forth. No more should we do it if the attacks come from outside our country. We talk about 9/11. We had all the evidence necessary to stop 9/11 before it happened. Everybody who's looked at that now agrees.
Are there any senators wishing to vote or wishing to change their vote? If not, on this vote, the yeas are 58, the nays are 42. 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn, not having voted in the affirmative, the motion is not agreed to.
Mr. President.
The senator from Vermont.
Mr. President, obviously I'm disappointed by tonight's vote. I'm not new to this fight. I mean, we've had 6 hearings on this issue. We had the interesting testimony of the head of the NSA who talked about 50 some odd terrorist activities that have been thwarted by what was in the law, but when he had to testify in public, it came down to possibly 1. I mention that because people asked whether we had hearings. We had 6. But the reason I say I'm not new to this fight, the very first vote I cast as a United States Senator in 1975 was in favor of the Senate resolution that created the Church Committee. I've worked ever since to ensure a strong oversight of surveillance authorities. We found the Church Committee that administrations of both parties had so badly misused the tools they had in the intelligence community. And we tried to put in restrictions that would balance our constitutional rights and our security we needed as Americans. And we tried to do that, and I think we did. That's why over the past decade I've consistently opposed extending U.S. Patriot Act and FISA Amendment sunsets without including meaningful reforms. The first sunsets were put in place by the Republican leader of the House, Dick Armey, conservative Republican, and myself here in the Senate. We joined together for the same thing, saying that if you don't have an ability to look at these issues on a periodic basis, then they'll go out of hand. I fought the status quo every step of the way in these efforts, but the broad coalition we built in favor of the USA Freedom Act shows we're gaining ground. And while I'm critical of those Republicans who failed to answer the call of the American people who elected them to stand up and to work across the aisle, those who reverted to scare tactics rather than working productively to protect America's basic privacy rights and our national security, I want to acknowledge the hard work and principled stands of several Republicans, Senator Heller, Senator Leahy, and Senator Cruz, as well as other Republicans in the other body, including my initial partner in this effort, Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner. They've been true partners in this reform effort, like Senators Franken and Blumenthal, Feinstein, and others who worked with me on transparency and the FISA court reforms in here. Now, we Vermonters fight to protect our privacy rights. They mean a great deal to us. Every Vermonter does. Every Vermonter feels that way. And this lifelong Vermonter will not give up the fight. I owe that to the Vermonters I serve and to the Constitution I swore an oath to defend. And I would say to those, both in this chamber and outside, who went at this issue by fomenting fear. Fomenting fear stifles serious debate and constructive solutions. Like the carefully drawn reforms in this bill, and doing it at the last minute is all the more regrettable. This nation deserves more than that. This nation should not allow our liberties to be set aside by passing fears. America will always face the threat of terrorist attacks, both outside our borders and inside. We didn't do away with all our civil liberties after the Oklahoma City bombing, even though that was an American who did that, somebody who served in our military, church-going, so forth. No more should we do it if the attacks come from outside our country. We talk about 9/11. We had all the evidence necessary to stop 9/11 before it happened. Everybody who's looked at that now agrees. If it bothered to translate the material we had, if it bothered to listen to people in Minnesota who tried to warn about it, we could have stopped that. But because mistakes were made then, let's not take away the liberties of 325 million Americans. I felt this way when I was a prosecutor. We even had people escape from prison with the intent to kill me. I said, okay, we'll get them, but we'll follow the law in doing it, and we did. Today, as a United States Senator, as one who 13 years ago this week, a letter was sent to me, addressed to me. It was so deadly with the anthrax in it that one person who touched the envelope addressed to me that I was supposed to open, they died. They died from that. And we still don't know, we still haven't caught all the people involved with that. But notwithstanding that, Mr. President, when people came to me and said, well, maybe we should do away with some of our search and seizure, maybe we should do away with some of our laws on wiretap. After all, somebody tried to kill you, and if you had touched that envelope, you would have died. I said, no. This is more than one senator, more than one person, more than one individual. This is the Constitution of the United States. And if we, the 100 members of this body, do not protect our Constitution, we do not protect our country, and we do not deserve to be in this body. Mr. President, I will continue to fight whatever years I have left in this body. I will continue to fight to preserve our Constitution and our rights as Americans. I yield the floor, and I suggest the absolute quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.